Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a senior in high school and a member of the GirlSpring Springboarder program. Today we are here with performing artist Nadia Vaeh. Nadia, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to be interviewing you, and I love your new single, Anxiety.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad we can talk a little more about that song and more. So, what you got?
The first question I have for you today is the question I'm sure been asked 1,000 times, but can you tell us how you got started in the music industry and how long you've been performing?
So, I've always been a performer, even from like a little kid. I always was the class clown, if you will, singing and dancing and coordinating plays in the neighborhood. And I had my first band when I was 16 in high school. And I had a series of events as a teenager that kind of took me away from music. I lost my mom to suicide, and I went through, just some tough growing pains from that. And I
Right.
think music kind of was a little scary for me. Uh, but I got led back to it because it is the ultimate healer. As we all know, it's the universal language that has so much power. And I found my way back to it through a chance meeting with a circus ringmaster that brought me on to their circus. Just to make the long story short, I started training with the circus, found out that I was not at all agile or like that circus was not for me. But I ended up singing in their in the circus productions, and I met my first really serious songwriting partner through that experience. And then from there, I just kind of found my way in different bands, and then with a pop producer, and then I found my way to pop music. And I've been writing and finding my voice and my sound, and now I've been putting out music for about a year and 9 months that I feel really good about. So
That's so cool. Y The circus, I've never heard. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find words, but that is just such a cool story. Like, wow, that's so awesome. Alright, so
thank
I
you.
read you're so welcome. I read that mental health is something that you are really passionate about, and that your hope is that your music can help others. Can you talk about that a little?
So I'm so sorry. There's a homeless person at our. Sorry, that I was like really thrown off. Um, and we're back. So you asked what was the question again? I'm so sorry.
You're good. So I read that mental health is something that you're really passionate about, and that you hope that your music can help others and reach out to them through their mental health struggles. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So with some of the things that I personally firsthand seen and experienced, and my own struggles with mental health and depression um, issues, I feel like so with my mom having struggled with depression and anxiety, and in her generation and in her time period where she was experiencing a lot of these things, I don't feel like there was much of a conversation going on about mental health. So I think that's why her story wound up different. And whereas in, fast forward to me, in my generation, we're really being advocates and really discussing these things. And I think that we have more outlets as well to be creative, and creativity is such a healer. And that's why I always try to convey the importance of that openness in my music. And honestly, since putting out my recent single Anxiety, I've actually had less anxiety issues because I'm talking about them more, and I'm hearing more from like girls like you that are sharing their stories about their struggles and their insecurities. And it just reminds me that I'm not alone, and that we all kind of face some of the same battles, and makes them less treacherous, it makes them less
Right.
difficult. So
Right. And as
um
someone who also struggles with anxiety, I totally agree with you about the whole generation standpoint. I definitely feel like the generations before, like ours, didn't really talk about it. It was more swept under the rug. And I think like talking about it and bringing it up in music is so comforting because your single really reaches out to so many people who feel that same way. And it really inspires and lifts up others. And I think that's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're
then,
so
you know,
cool.
and that makes me just amplifies the healing of creating the song. So
That's so amazing. I'm so happy. Well, so my next question, how has COVID affected you in terms of performing? I know that's not nobody really wants to, that's everyone's least favorite question. But and also the music industry in general. What concerts canceled, what venues closed? I would imagine it's really difficult for you as an artist. Do you think moving forward in something like this, do you think moving forward in in-person concerts will be a good idea, a bad idea? Like what do you think is going to happen moving on from this time in history?
I feel like what's happening now is really creating a lot of innovation. It's definitely uh, been a struggle for artists like myself to not have that outlet. Like we put out a new song and we want to get out there and we want to share it with new people. And there's nothing like an in-person show. Like I love meeting people like you after a show and just like vibing on the songs in person because the energy is completely different.
Right.
Um, I do think that there's the creativity that's happening with live performance is definitely shifting. Like we've got drive-in concert venues being built out here in LA. I'm thinking about actually doing a socially distanced show in Atlanta in November. So I do feel like there's still going to be ways that artists can get out there and have that in-person exchange, which is so important. Uh, and I do believe that there's a lot of light being shown on things that weren't working for artists in terms of how they're being compensated and how they're being cared for in the streaming area of things. So I'm hoping that this means that indie artists like myself can actually make livable wages and there can be things put into place as a result of this time. So I think there's some positive stuff coming
A
for sure.
socially distanced show sounds like so much fun too. Like that sounds really cool.
Hey, you ladies are in Alabama. Come through.
That would be so much fun. Get to talk to you more. That would be so awesome. And my next question is there are tons of girls listening to this who want to get into the music industry, which we all know is super competitive. What is your advice to listeners who want to pursue these careers?
I would say, yes, it is very competitive and it can be an overwhelming space to even think about entering. But my advice is go for it and don't compare your journey to the next girl because your voice and your experience is going to be completely different. And I know when I first started, I used to get down about my singing voice a lot. I would just be like, well, I want to sound like Ariana. I want to, like, but at the same time, my voice has a different grit and a different timbre than, an Ariana type of voice. And it's needed. So any girls out there listening, your journey is going to be a different one, but it's going to be beautiful and needed for your listeners. And another takeaway I would definitely be mindful of is it's a lot of hard work, and the hard work is going to take you on a roller coaster ride of emotions. You're going to have some hard times in this industry, but there's a lot of beautiful rewards, and some of them you know are like career milestones and all that, but also the spiritual growth that occurs for an artist I think is really beautiful, and that's been one of my favorite parts of my journey. So go for
I
it.
love how you talked about how unique everyone's journey is because I feel like that can get lost sometimes because we see like all these really big powerful stars and we all want to be like them, but the beauty in the industry is the diversity of sounds and talents. So I think that's really amazing that that's something that you strongly believe in and that you talk about a lot. I think that's really important for someone to advocate for.
Thank you. I mean, absolutely. The thing is too that I'm learning as I'm going up in this industry and how I'm like assembling who I am and like reassembling who I am because it's an industry that can kind of strip you of that. uh, Even people who are really established and have like mega hits, they suffer from imposter syndrome. They are like, I just don't feel like I'm
Mm,
good. Like I've heard conversations from like huge songwriters and major makeup artists that that have like made it, but they still have that same deep rooted insecurity that I think we all fight, you know, fight the
Right.
good fight on. So just go for it. Don't let those things get in the way. And we live in the Instagram, TikTok age. It's, really easy to compare ourselves to other people, but best thing we can do is just do what feels good for us.
That's really important to remember. My last question for you today, Nadia, is what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from someone?
Remain true to yourself, and your inner compass will always guide you to the right direction. There's going to be, things that might be unconventional about you, like especially if you're a creative type, there might be some things that people have judged you for, but those are the things that make you you and are going to help somebody else. And that's why I just say live in your truth, be you.
That is some really awesome advice. I think a lot of people really need to hear that. Not even just to go with like our time period. They just need to hear that in general. And I think it's so important for everyone to remember that. Really, honestly. Nadia, it has been so amazing to talk to you today. It has been so amazing meeting you. I think you are so inspiring, and I love what you're doing for people with your music. And especially, you are such a good role model for young girls like myself. And I really think you're going to change the world, most definitely. You are
Thank
an
you.
amazing role model. And you all can learn more about Nadia at her website and learn more about GirlSpring at girlspring.com. It was amazing talking to you today, Nadia.
Likewise. Thank you, Emma. I hope I get to meet you soon at an in-person show.
Flirting with the stress, I guess I like them cold sweats. Head is like a mess, I'm sending out an SOS.